Welcome. We hopefully all know why we are here, as future me probably titled this video something very simple. Remember to click all the YouTube buttons, and let's begin. If you are familiar with the Kingdom Hearts series, it may be evident from the art style that Kingdom Hearts Dark Road is a game released on mobile devices as part of the Key Saga. Its relation to the Key Saga on a story level, however, is more complicated, as with everything in Kingdom Hearts. Unlike the other 4-ish entries in the Key Saga, Dark Road is not directly connected to the Foretellers, Daybreak Town, the original Keyblade War, or its aftermath. Instead, this story is all about Xehanort, the series' main villain, detailing his origins and descent into villainy. Given that the game's opening cutscenes are a reel of scenes from Union Cross, I don't blame the confusion. Not helping is the fact that Dark Road just showed up on the Union Cross home screen one day like a tumor, making them the same app, but different games. And I thought this series got over its addiction to insane release schedules. But since this game, along with Union Cross, was removed from the App Store a few months back, I figured I would give a helpful recap so people don't have to watch a 4-hour re-upload of mobile game cutscenes where Xehanort is aimlessly wandering around Wonderland. With that preamble, let's begin. After the aforementioned Union Cross reel, Xehanort awakens on the shores of his homeworld, the Destiny Islands, reflecting on the dreams he's been having his whole life. Yep, just like me, Xehanort sees Union Cross in his sleep. There is no escape. We then get a direct recreation and expansion of a scene from Dream Drop Distance, where the time-traveling Ansem Seeker of Darkness comes to collect Xehanort's younger self to participate in the events of that game and Kingdom Hearts 3. Afterwards, he is returned to his own time with no memory of those events. So from Xehanort's perspective, he is taken through this dark corridor and directly winds up in Scala ad Caelum. As for the player, we skip ahead 2 years, though still to Scala. Xehanort and Ericus are chilling on a bench and discussing Xehanort's homeworld, which he claims to not remember, seemingly just to tease Ericus. They then head out to Keyblade School with several other students under the tutelage of Keyblade Master Odin. It's here we get introduced to our party members for this game, Xehanort's classmates who tease Ericus for being late. These people are the aforementioned Ericus, originally introduced in Birth by Sleep, along with the new characters of Bragi, Vor, Hermod, and Erd. Master Odin, however, is even later to show up, and their final classmate Balder is nowhere to be seen. We then get the game's title card and begin Episode 1. Unexpected Departure. Master Odin explains that several older students from a different class have gone missing right before their Mark of Mastery test, basically their Keyblade graduation. They were supposed to leave the confines of Scala ad Caelum to broaden their horizons in preparation for their role in protecting the worlds, but they have not yet returned. The younger students are being asked to help find them. Vor then brings up how Balder hasn't arrived, and Odin explains that as his sister is among the missing students, Balder will not be joining them due to emotional distress. He is then cut off in his lengthy preparatory explanations by a screen transition. Before leaving, the group discusses how to split into 2 teams, and during such, Xehanort brings up a concerning point. Keyblade wielders are meant to protect a world's order, but if a world has not yet fully reformed after the Keyblade War, then its order would be undecided and could be altered by external influence. Afterward, the game prompts the player to divide the group into teams of 3. The player will follow Xehanort and is required to take Ericus along with any of the remaining students of their choice. The group then dons Keyblade armor to protect them from the darkness as they travel, before arriving in Agrabah. The world is devoid of people, which Xehanort theorizes is due to them being the last part of a world to appear when reforming. What is there, however, is the Heartless, including emblem Heartless from the future, such as bandits and prismatic melodies. Knowledge of these Heartless do exist due to the Master of Masters and his predictive book of prophecies from the Key Saga, but these Heartless shouldn't be here. It is then that the group posits the idea that the Heartless attacked the older students, as unlike the younger ones, they were supposed to be traveling alone. Eventually, the group leaves to try and find more worlds after teasing Ericus for suggesting they just run away from the Heartless. We then flash forward to 4 years later, with Xehanort leaving flowers on gravestones right before leaving on his own trip prior to his Mark of Mastery. This does not bode well for the fate of the upperclassmen, and this somber scene ends Episode 1. Episode 2, The Presence of Darkness, begins in Wonderland, with Xehanort internally monologuing about the things that change people and who they are, before being interrupted by the Cheshire Cat and guard soldiers, the later of whom arrest our traveling trio. They then learn that their other classmates have been captured as well, so they slip out and begin to plan a breakout. The plan ends up being starting a philosophical argument with the Queen of Hearts, never a good idea, and then they have to improvise around the Heartless that pops out from her intense anger. After escaping, the other 3 students explain that they went along with being captured so as not to disturb the world's order, and the group theorizes that the upperclassmen might have wound up in a similar situation, only with no headstrong Ericus to bail them out. Xehanort and Ericus then have a moment of reflection on how darkness can linger in people's hearts before resolving to trust in the light, with Xehanort specifically recalling a line from Brain in Union Cross, which he had dreamed about previously, as we have established. Xehanort also gets caught on the idea of someone having darkness so deep in their heart they don't even realize it's controlling them. Before he can take the thought further, the group splits again, leaving Xehanort and Ericus to double-check that the upperclassmen weren't executed by the Queen. Another flash forward in the trip prior to Xehanort's Mark of Mastery, and he has been captured by the Card soldiers, this time on purpose to seek an audience with the Queen. This ends Episode 2. Episode 3, The Purpose of the Journey, begins with a flashback to Xehanort traveling through Ansem's dark corridor, which is not a good thing to be doing unprotected. He takes some reassurance in the corruption, however, as it means he can still feel, as opposed to being a hollow shell. Back in the present of Wonderland, Tweedledee and Tweedledum appear, their only appearance in the Kingdom Hearts series so far. Ericus unfortunately humors them, and a long spiel ensues about walruses. After that diversion, and a short run-in with the Mad Hatter and March Hare, the third person in the group will call out Xehanort and Ericus for wanting to investigate the Queen and her darkness specifically. The two of them figure that the shortest route to the truth is just grilling the Queen, which Xehanort and Ericus head to the courtroom and immediately begin to do, having learned nothing from the last time. Predictably, her darkness flares up again and the group is forced to fight another Heartless. Xehanort seems satisfied with the result, however, and everyone regroups in Scala to discuss. It is in this conversation that the ideas of darkness and Heartless being connected to their light as Keyblade wielders is thought upon, with Xehanort explaining that the rule of light being good and darkness being bad doesn't hold in Wonderland, which is ruled by a Dark Queen. Ericus counters this with a strict worldview on light and darkness, an unfortunate sign for the rift in their relationship this will cause later on. Fortunately for now, Hodor steps in to counter that finding the upperclassmen is their goal, so they will follow that even if it means they have to explore the possibilities of darkness. We then get a flashback to a week earlier with the first appearance of Baldur in this game. His sister has just left for the ill-fated trip, and in discussing it with Ericus, Baldur reveals that the way she was talking about said trip made it sound like she didn't expect anyone to come back from it. This ends Episode 3, and during the game's initial release, this is also where it was left for some time as Union Cross reached its end of service, taking Dark Road offline with it. Later on, the app would be re-released with just the cutscenes from Union Cross and eventually the rest of Dark Road's gameplay. So to emulate that, for now let's take a break, do some stretches, get some hydration, and enjoy this vibes-based Scala music. You all back and ready? Good. Now let's return to this tale of woe. Episode 4, Cruel Clues, begins with a flashback to a year ago, where Xehanort and Ericus are discussing the ancient Keyblade War over their chess game. This was previously seen in Kingdom Hearts 3 as its opening cutscene, titled Gambit. It's here we see that the ancient no-name Keyblade has become a wall decoration, which, considering its job is to witness the future, seems like a pretty good position for it. Back in the present, a party of Xehanort, Ericus, and Vor have been investigating Dwarf Woodlands, but Vor got separated from the others and stumbled upon the Queen's all-knowing magic mirror. And yes, I specify Vor, as from episode 4 onwards, the party composition is locked due to story events. She groups back up with the boys, and after an incident in a cave with one of the funniest scenes in the game, she takes them to the mirror. They ask it where Vidar, one of the missing upperclassmen, is. Turns out he's right behind them. Unfortunately, he's not coming back to Scala, since he apparently has some important things he needs to do, and tries to convince Vor that she should come with him and help. We then see that when she first found the mirror, Vor asked it if she would ever become a Keyblade Master. The answer is tragic. According to the mirror, she feels too comfortable with her friends to push forward, and so if she stays with them, she will never be a master. So she leaves with Vidar, ending Dwarf Woodlands in a sad air. And then a bunch of flash forwards happen that I'll cover later since they aren't as thematically related to the present as the previous flash forwards. Episode 5, The Key to Each World's Order, begins back in the classroom. Everyone is discussing what to do about Vor, and Master Odin has disappeared. Ericus and Bragi decide to use the magic mirror to track Vor and find her again. Meanwhile, Xehanort plans to lead Erd and Hermod on with their original mission, searching other worlds for the missing upperclassmen. However, the two groups don't part amicably, as Xehanort and Ericus have a debate that thankfully Erd interrupts. The reason Master Odin wasn't there was because he was up on a tower talking to Vidar about the sentient darknesses from Union Cross, which according to him have 2 members unaccounted for from that finale. Xehanort and company end up in Beast's castle, where the furniture thinks they can use Erd to break the Beast's curse. She can't even try, however, because the rose has been stolen, which Erd agrees to help find, believing it to have some connection to the upperclassmen. She is apparently right, and after getting overwhelmed by Heartless, Erd is saved by Vala, another of the upperclassmen, who also tries to recruit Erd to her plan, but is shot down. Vala then has her ninja friend Vali give Erd the rose, saying it's important to the world's order, and then leaves. A conversation which Xehanort overhears, ending episode 5. Okay, there's also more flash-forward scenes, but don't worry, I'll get to those later. Episode 6, Uncertain Order, is mainly set in Agrabah again? Well, at least that includes the people who have returned since the classmates were here last time. That unfortunately includes Jafar, who tries to trick the team into getting him Genie's lamp. They know he's tricking them, but go along with it to help their search. In the cave they find Bragi and Ericus, who were apparently also asked to get the lamp by Jafar. But Mr. Funny Hat is not the only one after it, as Erd's encounter with Vala has her believing the upperclassmen are also here for the lamp. Upon reaching the lamp chamber, Vidar emerges with Vor in tow, confirming Erd's suspicions. But that's not the only thing confirmed here. Vidar explains that some of the upperclassmen are indeed dead in the pursuit of defeating the darkness. To make sure their sacrifice wasn't in vain, Vidar, Vala, and Vali plan to disrupt the world so dramatically it will reveal true light, powerful enough to defeat the darkness once and for all. This is a bad plan, with too high of a cost, as Ericus rightly points out. But Ericus also wants the darkness gone, so Vidar leaves the lamp to test Ericus. Thankfully, with a pep talk from Erd and Xehanort, he leaves it be, ending episode 6. Yes, more flash-forward cutscenes. Those are really piling up, aren't they? Episode 7, Reason for the Disappearance, begins with the group discussing the upperclassmen's plan to Master Odin, who finally tells them about the ancient formless darknesses and the ways to defeat them, which is told to the player via a flashback of him telling this same information to Vidar. The first method is one any Union Cross player would tell you already, giving the darkness form with a vessel, which would enable it to be defeated at the cost of the vessel's life. The other is to summon the entity of Kingdom Hearts itself by gathering 7 pure lights, but in doing so would radically alter the fabric of the universe, at least theoretically destroying darkness in the process. After realizing the stakes at hand, Odin removes the group from their mission, wanting to take care of it himself. The classmates all gather outside to discuss what to do now, when Baldur suddenly re-enters the narrative. He apparently was sent out to learn about darkness, and one of the worlds he visited was Olympus, which is very convenient if you want to, say, talk to some of the dead upperclassmen. Balder also reveals that one of the deceased, Hoder, was his sister and died protecting him from Dragon Maleficent? I'm sure that will be explained later, but for now they head off to Olympus, where Hades tricks them into entering the games, which means you spend a whole while just fighting cool heartless designs with no real story behind it. Eventually, Hades takes them down to the underworld, where he agrees to connect them with Hoder under the condition that one of the group stays behind. They agree and leave to meet her, but are interrupted by Cerberus. Balder and Bragi hold it off so Xehanort and Ericus can meet with Hoder. Apparently, while traveling prior to their Mark of Mastery, the upperclassmen visited Enchanted Dominion and had some conflict over helping to defeat Maleficent. Unfortunately, Balder, who was not supposed to be there, made their decision for them, and everyone but Vala, Vidar, and Vali run in after him, where everyone but Balder tragically dies to dragonfire. They have no other information to share aside from some light-splaining, though Hoder does ask Xehanort a favor. On the way out, the group runs into Hades, who says that one of Balder or Bragi has become a permanent resident in the underworld, but he doesn't remember which. Then he sucks everyone into a giant dark vortex. The corrosive darkness in the vortex kills Hermod and Erd, but Xehanort and Ericus are saved by Odin wielding the Master's Defender, ending episode 7. Yes, there is another flash-forward cutscene, I know, just hold on, it's the last one. In the last episode, 7 Lights and 13 Darknesses, Odin consoles Xehanort and Ericus over the deaths of Erd and Hermod, while Ericus laments that Bragi and Balder were lost in the underworld. At Balder's name, Odin perks up, seeming confused that Ericus met him, but then Skala shakes, driving Odin to summon No Name from the wall and run off, seeming to know that this would happen. Xehanort tells Ericus that Balder is the cause of all this, as his sister dying opened his heart to darkness. Xehanort managed to figure this out because he is a smart cookie and eventually realized it while they were down in the underworld. Ericus then runs out to try and free Balder from the darkness, not wanting to lose another friend. They run into Vidar, Vala, and Vali, and Ericus gets mad at them for not saving Hoder and stopping Balder's fall. Apparently, they brought Vor with them, and she is heading towards Ericus to report her return, but Balder crashes the party and sicks Heartless on the group. Balder then runs off to confront Vor, telling her his tragic backstory. Apparently, after his sister died, Odin just locked him in the infirmary to sort out his negative emotions. Bad plan, oh man! Now he's seeking to kill 13 Lights and remake the world! What is it with everyone in this game wanting to remake the world? What happened to good old-fashioned crime? Anyway, Balder goes to kill Vor, claiming her death would be his 8th, but then the upperclassmen jump in to protect her and a big fight ensues. It goes poorly for Balder, so he summons a new Heartless, the Hurringhorn, to turn the tides back in his favor, killing the remaining upperclassmen in the process, along with eventually Vor. With only 2 students left and 2 kills needed, Balder invites Xehanort and Ericus to the top of the tower for an epic final clash. The two manage to overpower the Hurringhorn, and Ericus knocks Balder down for Xehanort to move in for the finishing blow. Balder then tries to tempt Xehanort with some we aren't so different darksplaining, when the spirit of Hoder emerges from Xehanort to talk to her brother one last time. Remember that favor back in the underworld? Hoder wanted to stow away with Xehanort to get a chance to talk to her brother. While trying to talk him down, Balder reveals he was born with the power of empathy, the ability to sense what other people felt. Whenever he felt the darkness in others, he would be afraid that he would be left in it forever, so he followed Hoder on her travels to Enchanted Dominion, and then found himself in Maleficent's clutches. During the exposition, Odin manages to wrap Balder in chains of light. Then, after some complaints from Ericus and one last attempt to sway him, Xehanort kills Balder. It's a month later, and the 12 fallen students are buried, with Xehanort and Ericus leaving flowers for them. Odin plans for the two of them to soon take their Mark of Mastery, and retire sometime after passing his duties on to them. The two head inside to play a chess match, but the graveyard isn't empty just yet. A man in an organization coat walks in, and we flash back to Bragi and Balder's fight against Cerberus. Apparently, they defeated it easily, but Balder tried to off Bragi before he could snitch about Balder being roided up on darkness juice. Bragi fights him off easily while reciting a familiar catchphrase. As if a character that looks like a human sans Undertale wasn't hiding a few secrets. Bragi is the current host for Lushu, and in the graveyard he laments how much harder it will be to show his face if he's supposed to be dead. He leaves, but not without expressing an interest in Xehanort's future. Roll credits! What, you didn't think it was over, did you? Flashback time! Xehanort was born in Scala ad Caelum, but his mother gave him to the care of this blue-robed figure to be raised on the Destiny Islands. Here, Xehanort is told that his ancestor was a great Keyblade wielder, but is also told the prophecy of the Child of Destiny, a child with the power to banish the darkness. Xehanort has a story of his own, of the people in his dreams from Union Cross. The figure then says that this is proof Xehanort can feel the hearts of others, proving he is the Child of Destiny. A child with the power to, and I quote, "They would have the ability to feel, share, and embrace what others felt in their hearts, and would even connect their heart with another to become one, and he would hail from the Isles of Destiny." We then flash forward towards the start of the game, as Robe Man contemplates his impending death from old age, how Xehanort's dreams are their own memories, and how the ancestor they spoke of was in fact their dear friend Ephemer from Union Cross. This blue-robed figure is us, the player character from Union Cross, reborn after the end of that game. Finally, we pass on, leaving the opening for Ansem to approach and lead Xehanort down his dark road. That is the end of this story, but there are those several flash-forwards throughout the game that I've been putting off to Xehanort's path in his future life. They come in two major time frames, the first surrounding Xehanort's travels before his Mark of Mastery, and the second in the events leading up to Birth by Sleep. Some of those travels I have already covered, like his return to Wonderland, but it's during these that someone very important enters Xehanort's life. Xehanort is traveling a dark corridor alone, contemplating the darkness he feels deep inside, likely from his memory-wiped trip to the future. He then removes his armor and passes out, but is saved by someone in an organization coat. Xehanort reawakens in the Keyblade graveyard, the cloaked man standing over him. The music reveals this to the audience as the Master of Masters from Union Cross. How is he here now? Just roll with it. After somewhat earning Xehanort's trust, the Master hands him a black coat, claiming that while it has a lower defense stat than his armor, it has a higher dark resist effect. In exchange for it, the Master asks that Xehanort examine the intentions of people's hearts as he travels in preparation for his Mark of Mastery and come back to him to report. This second encounter takes the form of the opening cutscene to KH3 Remind, titled An Encounter, with Xehanort giving the Master his findings. Xehanort claims that the worlds need him to correct the darkness in the hearts of the weak, and he will make it his mission to do so. And as an aside, no, the Master still doesn't say his name in this version of the cutscene. Xehanort then returns to Scala, with him and Ericus having completed their travels. The two begin a chess game and talk about how much a person can do in their lifetime. Ericus asks Xehanort how many lifetimes he would need to do everything he wants to do. The answer? 13, of course, to remake the world, and a 14th to explore it all. We then jump forward a full year, and now the two have taken up the Keyblades they would come to use in the future, No Name and Master's Defender. Apparently, Xehanort is already planning to summon Kingdom Hearts to protect the universe, a plan Ericus, rightfully at this point, disagrees with. And with no other students left to break them up, the two fight. A fight that will continue for 62 years, established by recreating a scene from Birth by Sleep called the Keyblade Masters, showing the fight between Ericus and Xehanort that gave the former his scars. Sometime later in Dwarf Woodlands, Xehanort approaches the magic mirror to ask if the people in his Union Cross dreams were ever real. The answer, as both the mirror and any Union Cross player will tell you, is yes. Not only did they exist in the past, Laurium, Elrena, Skuld, and Ventus were sent into the future, all ready to return in the next 10 years or so. Ventus in particular has just emerged in the Keyblade graveyard, which the mirror informs Xehanort of, kicking the events of Birth by Sleep firmly into motion. We then get a rough adaptation of a scene from Birth by Sleep titled The Boy with No Memories, where Xehanort brings Aventus to the Land of Departure to be cared for by Ericus after Vanitas has been extracted. Dark Road's version continues to focus on Xehanort and Ericus, with the former explaining that Ven has a strong light that needs to be nurtured, though this is as part of his plans in Birth by Sleep to forge the Keyblade. Even further into the future, Terra and Aqua have just finished their Mark of Mastery test, while Xehanort talks with Vanitas. Xehanort believes that Vanitas is not the darkness Ventus naturally possesses, but is instead one of the ancient formless darknesses, which, if you remember, took Ven as a host during Union Cross. Vanitas refutes this, but come on, it's Vanitas. He would lie to get a cookie. Of course he'd lie about his origins if it suited him. And if you made it this far into a Kingdom Hearts video, you probably know how the rest of this story goes from here.